Okay, now let's talk about the exits. One of the beautiful things about this strategy is that the exits are actually based on the same indicator that the entries are based on. So, what does that mean? That means that when you get into a trade, so let's start with our first trade over here on the left, okay? When we get into this trade, we are holding this trade and we are not going to exit this trade until we enter the next trade. So once our cut breaks and we enter the opposing trade, we will remain in this trade. Why is that? Well, conceptually, you have to understand. If we are in this buy trade right here, there's no need to exit this buy trade based on the strategy, based on this principle, until we believe the market is going to reverse and go bearish. Once we believe that the market is ready to reverse and go bearish, and we are ready to enter that sell trade, at that point, that is the indication that we need to exit the buy trade. So with this strategy, the indication to enter is the same indication to exit, which makes everything very simple. So here's this trade. We get in the trade over here. We exit over here once we take the sell trade. Here on this second trade right here, we exit this trade once we enter the buy trade over here. So that would be right in here. Okay. When do we exit this buy trade right here? When we enter the next sell trade. Where is that? That is right down here. Okay. When do we exit this sell trade? Right here. Okay, when we enter this buy trade. When do we exit this buy trade? All the way over here when we enter that trade. So let me go ahead and pull this down right about there. So right in here is where we will exit that trade. When do we exit this sell trade over here? We exit when we enter the next buy trade. When that cut breaks, we are in. Boom. When do we exit this buy trade? When we take the next sell trade. Where is that? It's right over here. Boom. Okay, when do we exit this sell trade? Right over here. This one is a loss right here. Okay. Go ahead and just pull that up. All right. On this one, when do we exit this buy trade? When we enter the sell trade. Where do we enter the sell trade? Over here. It's another loss. We enter here for a loss. Okay. Pull that down. Okay. When do we exit the sell trade? When we enter the next buy trade. Where is that? It's right in here. Right there. Okay. When do we exit this buy trade? When we enter the sell trade. Where is that? It's really, it's like right at break even. So this trade was break even. So we will just pull it up to there. Okay. When do we exit this sell trade? When we enter this buy trade over here. So we will pull it up. Okay, pull that over. All right. When do we exit this buy trade? When we enter the sell trade over here, right there. All right. When do we exit this? When we break this over here. Okay. We chose not to enter on this one because we waited for a retest. We will discuss how to manage that here in a little bit. Okay. When do we exit this sell trade right here? Right over here when we enter the next one. All right. So with this strategy, you will always be in a trade. You will always be in a trade. When do we exit this sell trade? When it's time to enter that buy trade, somewhere right in here. Okay. Next one. When do we get out? When we get back in. All right. This one will go until it breaks. Okay. Which is over right in here. Somewhere right in here. Okay. So your exits are the same cues as your entries. So when you exit one trade, you are entering another trade in the opposite direction. Now, normally when you exit your trade in this way, you will be exiting for a profit. Worst case scenario, it could be break even or a small loss. Now, we do need to discuss there, that is your exit based on the strategy. However, there is also going to be another type of exit, which is the exit if you are wrong. Okay, the exit if you are wrong. Now, how does that work? If you recall when we discussed cutting, I discussed how I typically like to look at the cut as a horizontal line before it actually forms. And to kind of give you an idea of what that means, come back over here to the live market and take a look at this. Oh, look, wonderful. We will have an update of our cut now. Boom. Okay, so to give y'all an idea, so before this happens, okay, before we had this, I was looking at the cut as if it was basically a horizontal line up here. What does that mean? Well, that means if this is the entry right here, okay, so we were in a buy trade down off in here, all right, we held that trade until we entered the next trade, which is when this cut broke, which was right in here, and then we turned around and entered the sell trade. When we entered the sell trade, we don't have any cut to base our exit off of. So when I go and I enter this trade up here, and I enter right here on in the close of this candlestick, how do I know when to get out of this trade if I'm wrong? Well, what you do is you use the most recent high or low. So in this case, it would be the most recent high. If price, so if I enter this trade right here and price comes back up and closes above this high and sustains up here with another candlestick, I'm out of the trade. Keep in mind, stop losses are not designed to take you out of trades. I'm only showing the stop loss being down in this area because this is where you would be manually exiting. Your stop loss would be much further. It's just designed to protect your account. But you will be exiting off in this area roughly, okay, depending on the candles, 40 or so pips, okay, if you are wrong. So you're going to use the most recent swing high or swing low to determine how to exit the trade if you are wrong. If you enter the trade to capitalize on the new trend and the trend is wrong, okay? Now, once you get your cut, so once you develop your trend line like we just now did in live market conditions, now this is not going to be my exit anymore because I'm right. I've already discovered that I was correct. I should be in the sell trade. We are heading down. That's great. Now I will exit the trade when the cut breaks and price sustains. Okay? Either one. Now with the cuts, I will typically exit on the first break or again on the retest. It just depends on the scenario, depending on the market environment. But again, with the manual exits, when you're wrong, always wait for the retest. Always wait for the retest. On the break of the cuts, you don't have to wait for a retest. If you see a candle that breaks this, you can take your profits. But on the original exit, if you are wrong, okay, using the high or the low, you need to wait for the retest every time. Okay? So, with that being said, that's great that we got to see an example of how the cut forms in the live market. That's great. I'm really glad we got that. Now let's come back over here and let's discuss not stop losses, but where your exits are. Okay, so here was our entry marked in white. When am I going to exit this trade? What I personally like to do is I just like to use a box just because it's more physically appealing. All right, so we draw this box in here at the low. So if price breaks and sustains underneath this low, I'm out. Let's pull it over. Did it ever happen? No. Mean wick though. Hope you placed your stop losses according to how we tell you to in the risk management training. If you place your stops like it's often taught out there, just on the other side of structures and stuff, you would have lost money for no reason. Okay, but we were waiting to see if price would break and sustain down here. It did not. We held, and then we were waiting to see price reach back up to this high so that we could form our trend line. It finally did over here, and then we have our trend line developed on these lows, which is great. So we remained in the trade until over here when our cut breaks. Okay, now when this cut breaks, what am I going to do? My box is on the recent high. So if I enter this sell trade right here and price rises back up and breaks through my high, I'm out of the trade, okay, for a loss. Down here, let me just move this box along with us. When I enter this buy trade, okay, I'm watching this low right here. So my stop loss is essentially, not really stop loss, but my exit's down here. All right. On the next one, so when I hop in this sell trade right here, what am I looking at? This recent high. If price breaks above this high and closes above here, I know that I was wrong. We made a new high by definition, therefore the trend is not bearish. My sell trade is invalid. I need to get out. I was wrong. Okay? Down here, we enter the buy trade over here. What am I waiting to see? I'm waiting to see, is price going to break through this low? Does it ever break through the low? No, it does not. Comes back down, it holds. Come back down, it holds. Okay, we're good. Sell trade. When I enter this sell trade over here, I'm watching this high, waiting for that to break. It never did. Price continued to go down. I ended up getting my cut. That's great. I'm getting a much better exit. On the buy trade over here, what am I watching? I'm watching this low. Check this out. Let's zoom into this. We touched on this a little bit earlier, okay, but I want to make sure y'all understand. So if I pull this exactly to the wicks right here on this low, you can see how price did temporarily break under that low. But look, it came right back in. This is why I stress the importance of waiting for it to not just break, but also retest. Had you have exited this buy trade down here and sold, you would have just had several bad trades at least, all for no reason. Okay, so we need to see it break and hold. The next one up here. So we entered the sell trade. Okay, so this is our high right here. So on this sell trade in here, okay, when was I going to get out of this sell trade? If I see that price breaks up here. Okay, now here's the thing. If you see, obviously, if you see a giant bullish candlestick with a lot of momentum, okay, you can just go ahead and get out of the trade, okay? So when I say that you need to wait for a retest, I mean if you just see price kind of come up, close out of here a little bit, but obviously on this is a very strong bullish momentum candlestick. You might want to review price action if you're not too comfortable with that subjective reasoning there, but you would go ahead and get out. Worst case scenario, if you don't understand that, you would have gotten out up here. It'd have been a worse exit, but you get the idea. You need to wait for the high or the low to break before you exit the trade. So this one was a loss up here at minus 59 pips. The next trade, okay, so we entered a buy trade in here. When we entered this buy trade, we ended up losing it, but what were we waiting for? Well, we were waiting for this low over here to break. Once it broke, we were out. All right, now it broke. It's pretty convincingly. So I would say on a break like this, on a giant candlestick like this, you can go ahead and get out. But just in case, if you did wait for the next one, it was okay. But again, on a candlestick like that, you want to go ahead and exit right off the bat if you see something that vigorous breakthrough. Okay, so that was another good example. Now, typically, so we just talked about these two losses here. Typically, when you do lose a trade, it will come in twos, because you got the trend wrong to begin with, and by the time you hop in the next trend, it could be ending or switching up again. So you'll take L's and twos pretty often. So something to keep in mind. Okay, the next one. So we enter off in here. What are we watching? We're watching this low down here, making sure that price doesn't come back in reverse on us. So you can see how if you enter the trade right in here. Okay, if you enter the trade right in here, and then price is working its way back down against you, you could be nervous. Okay, and that's why we're watching this low. So if price continued to come down, we'd have been out of the trade. All right. Next trade, we entered over here on this circle. What were we watching? We're watching this high right in here. All right. So making sure nothing broke through it. It didn't. It held. So we continued on. Down here when we entered, right here. Okay. We would manually exit this trade and be wrong if price came back and broke through the low. Up here at the top, we'd have manually exited the trade if price had actually broke through here. You got pretty nervous at one point. See that wick breaking through? But it did not close. Therefore, we remained in the trade until we developed a trend line. All right. Hope that this is becoming redundant. I want to make sure this is very clear. Okay, so we enter this trade in here, right? We didn't actually enter this one, but depending on how you drew it, you would have been in. So let's just say you were in. If you were in this trade, you would be watching these lows. If price would have come back down and broken through this low, you were out of the trade. You were wrong. Get out. Cut the loss. All right, we took a sell trade right here. What are we watching to get out of the trade? For price to break this high back up here. Notice how price sure does come back up to give you a test too. A lot of times, me personally, when I see something like that, I'll get back in on another position because that's a great entry right here. Very good risk to reward. But again, the concept is just understanding what you're looking for to invalidate your trade. It's a break of the recent higher low for the swing. Down here, your entry was up here. When you entered that trade on that little red candlestick there, you knew that if price came all the way back down and broke through these lows, you were going to be out of the trade for a loss. All right. Let's move it up here. Okay, so when we broke through right here, we knew if price broke through this high, we were out. Okay, price did come back up, might scare you a little bit right at the beginning. That's why it's important to the better you understand this, the more comfortable you're going to be when price moves against you at first, or it doesn't move in the direction you want. You don't see those immediate profits or immediate gratification because you understand what you're doing. Great example right here. You hop in this trade after 2 green candlesticks. You hop in because it's the second candle to close outside of the trend line. Price goes sideways for a little bit, and then boom, big red candle, giant wick down here. You're feeling really nervous. As long as you understand the concept of as long as we're above this low, we are good. You won't run into any problems. Up here, we're in the sell trade. As long as we're beneath that high, we are good. All right. We are waiting for our cut to develop. So we actually get an update in that too, right in here. Okay. And so we're out of the trade over here. All right. So that is important. That is basically your exits in a nutshell. So you will have two types of exits. Either A, you're going to enter a trade and you're going to exit because price breaks the recent swing high or swing low, at which point you are wrong. You're going to manually exit and take the loss. The second type of exit is going to be exiting based on a break of your cut or your trend line.